Our male protagonist is dreaming of himself sinking into an endless deep place. Suddenly, he hears a cry for help and wakes up, only to realize he's in a prison cell. Near a hole in the wall, there's a girl calling for his help. She informs him about a spiked wall approaching them, moving closer at regular intervals. He tries to break the window to escape, but it's too hard. The main door can only be opened from the outside. He initially thinks the girl is his captor and shouts at her, but realizes she's also a victim. He notices she has an axe and tells her to use it to break her window and escape. However, she doesn't have a window, so he asks for the axe to escape and then rescue her. She makes him swear an oath or else they'll both die. He decides to listen and swears, "I, Ning Yuan, swear I won't leave you here and escape alone. If I do, may I die a gruesome death." Only then does she give him the axe, but the hole is too small and jammed to pass it through. She tries to chop the hole wider, but discovers it's made of super hard granite. The girl then sits down crying helplessly while Ning Yuan asks her to be quiet so he can think. She laments about never having experienced her first kiss, saying she had just dozed off on a train and woke up on this iron bed. Hearing about the iron bed, Ning Yuan asks her to pass him a bed leg so he can pry open the window and rescue her through the rotting wooden roof. She reluctantly trusts him and passes the bed leg. He successfully pries open the window and climbs out just before the spiked wall passes by and blocks the window. We learn that the girl's name is Su Jin. She once went mountain exploring with a group of friends. When one person accidentally fell while picking flowers, she helped bandage the wound. She's the daughter of an excellent traditional Chinese medicine doctor, so she's learned all about traditional medicine. Suddenly, two other friends come to inform her that their original way down the mountain is blocked. They now have two choices: stay and wait for an unknown time for rescue, or leave the injured young man behind and return before the path is completely blocked. Su Jin initially refuses, saying they shouldn't abandon the injured man, but they argue it's better to sacrifice one than for all to die. The injured man overhears and obviously isn't noble enough to stay and die for them to live. The two friends directly state their view instead of beating around the bush. They leave half of their supplies for Su Jin and the injured man, then depart with a promise to send help for both if they escape. That night, she helps the young man's leg heal better and tells him to get well soon so they can leave. This young man has fallen for her and asks her to be his girlfriend if they escape, but she avoids the question and leaves to gather herbs, telling him he's not really her type. She later finds quite a few things, but when she returns, she discovers the young man has left, taking all the supplies and leaving a note explaining his actions. From then on, she harbors a grudge against men and thinks Ning Yuan is the same. However, he breaks through the ceiling to rescue her as he swore. She's so surprised that she sits stunned for a moment before running to grab Ning Yuan's hand. She then joyfully hugs Ning Yuan for saving her and apologizes for cursing at him, thinking he had abandoned her. She introduces herself and asks about his job, but he's in shock, not knowing where they are. Ning Yuan then jumps down and catches Su Jin, but she's heavier than expected, causing him to get irritated when he's pinned down. They both realize they seem to be in a lighthouse and there's a path down nearby, so they use the bed leg to open a door and climb down. After a while, Ning Yuan notices a section of the stairs is missing. He takes a risk and jumps, managing to grab onto the ladder. He tells Su Jin to jump and he'll catch her. He successfully catches her, but the ladder detaches due to the weight and falls. Ning Yuan uses his body to shield her as they fall into the water. He then loses consciousness and Su Jin brings him to the surface. Su Jin knows Ning Yuan has been injured from the fall into the water. She then drags him to shore and returns to the base of the lighthouse to avoid the rain. She is absolutely determined not to let him die and seeing a room nearby, decides to drag Ning Yuan there. She is worried about potential danger, but going there to rest is the only option now. She then drags Ning Yuan there and sees that it seems to be empty. She reluctantly leads Ning Yuan inside and notices someone's shadow in there. She fumbles for the switch and turns on the light, only to find it's a corpse. A young man appears behind her and points a knife at her throat. He asks her where this place is and why she brought him here. If she lies, Jiang here will make her end up like that dried corpse. She begs to put Ning Yuan down first. He then asks again, and she admits she doesn't know where this is because she just escaped from the lighthouse with Ning Yuan and had an accident coming down. The young man then decides to question Ning Yuan and forbids her from interfering, or he'll stab her. He steps on Ning Yuan's hand to wake him up and asks him for information, but he doesn't know who Su Jin is. She argues that they've only just met, but Jiang catches her mistake and is about to stab her. However, he stabs between her fingers as a warning, saying next time she'll lose a finger. She then sees Ning Yuan crying like a child and asks to explain. She suggests that the trauma from falling from a height into water might have caused Ning Yuan to suffer memory loss. Her long explanation irritates Jiang a bit, but he's still not convinced, so he asks her to explain why Ning Yuan would sacrifice himself to protect her, or he'll put a knife to Ning Yuan's throat. Rambling about love at first sight would result in immediate stabbing. She then thinks and asks him if he's ever had any friends, and if any new friend would be willing to sacrifice themselves to protect him. This convinces Jiang, as he has had bad relationships with the underworld, and his friends have sacrificed themselves to save him before, so he understands her situation. He then asks her if there's any way to treat Ning Yuan, but it seems impossible for now as Ning Yuan only has memories from elementary school. As for the dried corpse, after Su Jin examines it, she knows it was brought from somewhere else. The house is quite damp, but the corpse is burned, which is strange. She knows this from studying medicine for a long time. She doesn't know everything about this corpse, so she asks Jiang to cut open the clothes and finds 4 numbers on the corpse, 0843, which seems to be some kind of code. Jiang remembers being chased by the underworld and having to escape by boat, and somehow when he woke up, he was here. He thinks they were all abandoned here by human traffickers to escape, but Ning Yuan remembers that he and Su Jin were locked in a room with a mechanism that compressed the walls, so it's impossible for human traffickers to have time to set all this up while escaping. Suspecting this is some kind of survival game, they both decide to go back to the lighthouse to find clues. But Jiang informs them that the path up outside the stairs has broken, and the stairs inside that they climbed down have also been blown up. Suddenly, Su Jin discovers a piece of paper in the corpse's ear. It's a map of the entire island, with some lighthouses marked with crosses, though the meaning is unknown. Ning Yuan finds the map familiar but can't remember and gets a headache. Jiang thinks he's faking it and is about to teach him a lesson, but Su Jin stops him. She then takes him to rest, and he only remembers seeing someone draw this map but can't recall clearly. Jiang then lets them both rest and goes outside. He still doesn't trust them and suspects they're from the underworld. The next morning, Jiang wakes them both up and informs them they will now head to the crossed-out place because there might be some clues. Su Jin is worried because neither of them is in the best condition, but he's not suggesting ideas for them. He's giving orders. He informs them that from now on, they are his subordinates, and if he discovers they have any schemes behind his back, they'll be in trouble. They then set out, and midway, Jiang tells them to stop. He's discovered a trap right on the road. These spikes have bloodstains, but it's unclear whether it's from humans or animals. Su Jin thinks there might be more people on the island who could become teammates, but Jiang finds her too naive. In this godforsaken place with scarce food, people are ready to trample on each other to survive. So from now on, they must remember to always hide themselves. If they see anyone, they should observe first without revealing themselves and absolutely not trust anyone. He then orders both of them to go find food. He believes that being the strongest, he has the right to make decisions here. After a day, Ning Yuan finds wild berries, while Su Jin picks mushrooms. Su Jin lets a nearby rabbit go, but Jiang doesn't. He throws a knife, killing the rabbit, then leads them to a nearby cave for temporary shelter. After eating, he stares at Sujin for a while, then tells her to go inside and gather dry grass to make a bed for him. He then calls Ning Yuan over to give him the remaining rabbit meat and warns him not to go inside no matter what. Jiang then reveals his bestial nature and attempts to rape Sujin. Hearing Sujin's screams, Ning Yuan, despite fearing the warning, runs inside to stop Jiang. He immediately gets punched, and when Jiang threatens to deal with him, Ning Yuan argues that the reason he intervened was because Jiang is the one who can ensure the damage-dealing role in the team while Sujin is the healer. Indeed, the young man is talking about everything like it's in a game, which makes Jiang's blood boil, and he punches him again. He then loses interest and leaves, instructing both of them to continue finding food tomorrow. That afternoon, Jiang confirms that the other two are not from the underworld. He's deep in thought when he suddenly hears a cry for help and runs back. It's not coming from the cave, so he runs towards the trap to check and sees a man running towards it. Sujin wants to warn him, but Ning Yuan covers her mouth. The man falls into the trap, and the reason Ning Yuan stopped her is that there's someone else coming, and whoever could make that man run away must be formidable. A native then appears and finishes off the man who fell into the trap, then drags him away. Sujin is so shocked she faints. They take Sujin back to the cave, and Ning Yuan suspects the person they saw might be from a cannibalistic tribe. They can conclude that this place is much more dangerous than they thought. Jiang tells Ning Yuan to be cautious, as this might just be the beginning. The next morning, Ning Yuan climbs a tree to pick coconuts when Sujin screams because of a rat at her feet. Jiang runs in, annoyed that she's not afraid of corpses but is scared of rats. She then needs to go to the bathroom, so she goes to a corner and forbids both of them from following or looking. While they wait, Sujin, after finishing, notices someone nearby. She suddenly screams again, so both of them run to find her. They discover two natives about to kill Sujin. Jiang wants to wait a moment to think of a plan, but as time is running out, he decides to throw his knife at the one with the hammer, while Ning Yuan pushes the other one away. Just as the hammer is about to come down, suddenly a gunshot rings out and kills the one with the hammer. The other one runs away in fear. Ning Yuan runs to Sujin, who is terrified. A girl steps out with a gun and calls Jiang out. She's Tracy, an American police officer, and she has a group nearby. She wants to join them. But Jiang asks if she's ever been to China, and she says no, which makes him wonder how she knows Chinese and why she seems familiar. Translators note, the part about speaking Chinese was made up by the original author. Tracy suggests that people often look alike, so he must be mistaken. She then finds it strange that despite being a good shot and aiming for the native's head, her bullet hit the heart instead. Before they have time to think, more natives arrive, forcing the group to run. Tracy stays behind to cover them and tells the three to wait for her at a nearby stream. Jiang wants the two younger ones to go first. When they reach the stream, they wait for a while, but Tracy doesn't catch up. Jiang instructs both of them not to reveal the map and password to anyone, as besides the natives, they don't know how many others would be willing to kill them for this information. This information is what they have, and they absolutely must not carelessly give it to anyone. The three decide to work together to escape from here. He will protect both of them, and both need to trust him. Sujin chooses to follow Ning Yuan, while Ning Yuan agrees to follow Jiang. Ning Yuan then rambles on about some game theories, making Jiang think he's really beyond help. All three then decide to make a vow to share weal and woe together. Tracy later returns to meet them. She has temporarily pushed back the natives, but her ammunition is running low, so she takes them to regroup with the others. She leads them to a shelter and meets other people there. They know Tracy has just encountered the natives. A young man thinks that with limited ammunition, she shouldn't be rescuing more people. Jiang is annoyed because this young man is implying that the three of them are wasting ammunition, so he wants to punch him. But the uncle here has asked him not to get physical in this place. Since they use principles similar to the law here, freedom of speech is allowed, but getting physical violates the rules. Jiang thinks that if they have laws, Tracy would be the law enforcer. Anyone who commits a serious violation would be executed. He doesn't know if Tracy would abuse her power, but she believes that a police officer like her wouldn't. Jiang feels that if he can't join, he can leave, and she won't force him. Jiang reluctantly humbles himself to stay. They then introduce themselves. This uncle is Shigaki, the chairman of a corporation. This young man is Wangxiang, a basketball player. The other guy is Romeo, an actor. Jiang and Romeo now openly hate each other. Tracy then reveals that she has just discovered a structure to the south. The place is large but quite deserted. Shigaki wants to investigate a bit, but the two young men are both worried that it might be where the natives live. However, Tracy still agrees to go investigate, but the uncle wants them to vote to be sure. Jiang asks the two younger ones what they think, and they say they'll follow him, but he wants to abstain and make the two younger ones express their own opinions. If they abstain, they'll have to accept whatever the result is. Su Jin then abstains while Ning Yuan chooses to explore. But Jiang now says he hasn't voted yet. He was just asking earlier and hadn't completely abstained, so now he wants to stay to see how a leader like Mr. Shigaki would resolve a tie vote. He finds it interesting, so he chooses to have a second round of voting. This time, he takes out a stack of banknotes. He will pay $10 million to anyone who follows him. The money might be worthless here, but when they get out of here, they can enjoy themselves with that much money. Jiang thinks he's bribing people, but he argues that bribery is an act for personal gain, while this is for the common good. But Jiang now has a better trick. He then wants the two younger ones to vote for him and gives them another choice. If anyone votes for him, that person will receive 3 times the amount of Mr. Shigaki's money. The reasoning he gives is that if he really wants to go exploring, he will have to pay 3 times the amount to buy back the votes from him and the two younger ones. This is Jiang's way of playing on his psychology, and Romeo is the one who follows him to gain profit. So now Mr. Shigaki has to pay more money if he wants to go. The next day, the group sets out. While walking, Jiang observes Tracy and then asks her to go to a corner to talk privately. She wants him to speak right there, so he immediately comes to whisper, causing her to go to another corner to discuss. She then, for some unclear reason, slaps Jiang and tells everyone to continue. They later arrive at the structure that Tracy had found. It looks like a pyramid, so Ning Yuan thinks this is Egypt. But Mr. Shigaki points out that pyramids are not only in Egypt, as this term is used to describe a type of structure in general. Looking at this, he suspects they might be in South America. As they enter, Su Jin doesn't know what has really happened to them, whether they are truly being put into a game or not. But Ning Yuan doesn't like to worry too much, because they are still alive, which is enough. Ning Yuan also wants Su Jin not to speak so formally later because he doesn't understand. He also thinks that now that they have this check, there's no need to go back to studying properly. The two of them laughing behind makes Jiang wonder what they're so happy about. A moment later, Tracy finds traces of someone lighting a fire here. It's certainly not the natives because Ning Yuan even found some batteries nearby. Mr. Shigaki decides to divide people to explore inside. He is knowledgeable about architecture, so he will go. Tracy follows as protection. Su Jin is also called because of her good medical skills, and the last person is the basketball player Wangxiang for physical tasks. While that group goes inside, Romeo has asked to cooperate with Jiang for future profit, but he then says straight out that he's only using Romeo to gain his vote. He pulls out a knife to demand Romeo's check, but Romeo threatens him with the law. However, Jiang can make up some death for him since Ning Yuan over there is busy relieving himself. He reluctantly hands it over and is sure Jiang will face karma later. Meanwhile, Su Jin and the group inside discover quite a lot of ancient text here. Su Jin is lost in thought about her family's tradition of raising poisonous worms for self-protection, and when Jiang molested her, the poisonous worm on her hair tie had entered his body. But she had neutralized the poison and Jiang will suddenly have severe pain at some point. which is a sign that the poison is being neutralized, and also to teach him a lesson. Jiang is now starting to detox and has a stomachache. Suddenly, natives appear, causing the other two to run away while Jiang is in too much pain to run. Ning Yuan decides to go back, and Jiang realizes this seems to be karma, so in the next life he'll choose to be a good person. Suddenly Ning Yuan arrives and supports Jiang to leave. Romeo goes inside and sees the latch closing the door, so he quickly pulls out. The door gradually closes, forcing Ning Yuan to quickly get Jiang inside. Both of them manage to get in just before the door closes and the people inside have come back. Jiang blames Romeo for intending to leave both of them behind, but he says he was just too scared. Mr. Shigaki doesn't blame him because anyone in that situation would panic. Su Jin then discovers a bruise on Ning Yuan's hand. She realizes this is poison from earlier when Ning Yuan was grazed by an arrow. She used a knife to try to squeeze out the poison blood, but no blood came out, making her realize this is an extremely potent poison. If it reaches the heart, it's incurable. Jiang wants to try hard to save Ning Yuan because he got injured while saving him. Jiang wants to go out and beat up the natives to get the antidote, but Ning Yuan wants them not to panic and just calmly find a way out, because panicking now would only waste more time. Mr. Shigaki didn't expect Ning Yuan's elementary school memories to be so surprisingly calm at this moment. Maybe he's the person with the best survival skills in this group. Romeo still wants to vote, but there's no need because everyone chooses to find a way out to save Ning Yuan. They then find a passage down below. This place is damp as if it's frequently flooded. They then find a room with many pillars of varying heights. Suddenly someone calls for help from under the water. They are the people who went before, and one of them can read the natives' text, so they can help decipher it. There isn't much time because the water is rising, so Jiang borrows Su Jin's rope and gives it to Wangxiang to throw down into the water. He throws accurately, and they immediately pull the other group up. When they get to shore, this tall, big brother introduces himself as Andre and is a Russian mercenary. This Chinese brother is a stand-up comedian. The girl next to him is a housewife, and this unconscious person is a professor who can read the text. He then regains consciousness and reveals that the exit is right in front of them, and they need to reach the highest place for the exit to appear. The way for them to get up these pillars is based on the water level released in each wave. They must guess where the water level will reach in order to choose the right pillar to land on. If they choose wrong, they'll end up like them earlier, swept away by the extremely high water pressure here. Water has started to flow down, and Jiang thinks that instead of struggling, they should just swim to the highest stone pillar and climb up quickly. If the water sweeps them away, just hold on tight. But the professor lets Jiang know that not everyone among them is strong enough to climb or hold on to the stone pillar to resist being swept away by the water. They can't risk the whole group for one person. But Ning Yuan has seen a gradually ascending path right in front of them. The professor realizes he had lost his bearings due to many other stone pillars and didn't notice the 4 pillars in front of them increasing in height. So they just need to wait until the water reaches the first pillar. Then they can swim up and wait for the water to be released to gradually ascend. And when they reach the last pillar, whoever can climb up will throw down a rope to pull up the rest. But according to calculations, they only have 10 minutes to climb up to the highest stone pillar. Here, besides the 3 strongest people who will climb up first, there are still 8 people left, estimating about 1 minute per person. It might still be feasible, but if there's a mistake, the people climbing up later will face more danger. Romeo demands a draw, but Su Jin refuses because if the weak ones end up going last, they'll be in trouble. Romeo insists on drawing lots, so Jiang rushes over to stab him, but is stopped by Andre and Tracy. Mr. Shigaki has to step in to mediate and agrees to the draw. After drawing, the artist brother and the housewife go last. Mr. Shigaki has swapped his last turn with the housewife so she won't worry. The water then starts to flow in, and everyone quickly swims to the pillar. Andre has climbed up, but Wangxiang climbs up first and starts throwing down the rope. Wangxiang and Jiang also manage to climb up and help Andre pull people up. One by one, people are pulled up. Ning Yuan gets up, then it's Su Jin's turn, and then the artist brother. While climbing, everyone knows the water is about to come again. Just as it's Mr. Shigaki's turn, the water is released. Fortunately, he still manages to hold on and is pulled up in time, so there are no casualties. This is enough to understand that calculations sometimes will have unpredictable errors. The professor then informs them that this place must be South America, and the text he found belongs to South American natives who lived from pre-Christian times and were mortal enemies of the ancient Maya. This tribe was considered to have immortal life and was extremely powerful. The way the Maya defeated them was that suddenly one day, they just disappeared. The natives outside are not the tribe he's talking about. Ning Yuan feels like he's heard this story somewhere before but can't remember. They then continue their journey and safely reach the next pillar. But now they suddenly see a door near their pillar. The two pillars are at the same level, and now they have two choices. One, continue up to a higher pillar, or two, take a risk and try going to the other side. But in the end, everyone chooses to continue up to the higher pillar to see what happens. Because this place must have some kind of marker to trigger water drainage. So if they go up there and wait for a while and nothing happens, they can still swim back to that gate in time. They then have Andre climb up to the higher pillar first. He sees there's also a door here, so he tells the other two to climb up quickly. Halfway up, Jiang's foothold breaks and he falls, pulling Wangxiang down with him. Andre now has to work faster. He's just pulled the housewife up when she starts fiddling with the door, and right when Tracy gets up, the housewife is pushed to the other side by the door. They discover that the previous door has also opened. The professor then comes up to check and regretfully has to announce that the housewife can't be saved, because the condition is that one person must be sacrificed to open the exit. This means that the door from earlier was actually the exit. Although that door has been submerged, now the water will no longer be released, but will be drained. So now they need to find a way back to that door before the water drains and creates a whirlpool that could sweep them away. They then struggle to swim back, and midway, the artist brother has run out of strength and sinks down. But the image of his former master motivates him to continue struggling and resurface to reach the shore with everyone else. They then go together through a corridor, and Ning Yuan has now started to have a fever and is talking deliriously, forcing Andre to carry him to help Su Jin. They then arrive at a place that looks like an altar. On it is a table and nearby text that the professor says means the god needs a sacrifice to let them continue. They think they just need someone to lie on that table. Tracy tried lying down and the door then opened, but it's not easy to pass through because as soon as Tracy sits up, the door immediately closes. This means someone needs to stay behind as a sacrifice. But can they put something else on it instead? Everyone wants to try, so they split up to search. But they turn the whole area upside down and still can't find anything to put on instead. It must be because it's been too long and the stones have almost completely weathered away. At this rate, it's certain that one person will have to stay behind. Romeo immediately suggests leaving Ning Yuan behind, because carrying someone who's about to die won't do any good. Su Jin obviously doesn't agree, but now whether she wants to or not, she has to accept it, because they have to put the interests of the majority first. Mr. Shigaki believes that Ning Yuan would also accept sacrificing his nearly dead life to let everyone else live. They then voted and 6 people chose to leave Ning Yuan behind while 4 did not. The decision was made and they asked Jiang if he would accept the voting result. He declared straight out that if they want to leave his sworn brother behind, they'd have to go through him first. Romeo wants Andre to leave Ning Yuan behind, but he's a soldier and doesn't accept abandoning comrades. Jiang has had enough of this sissy guy, but he doesn't use his knife, instead knocking Romeo out with a punch and asking if anyone objects to leaving this guy here. No one speaks up, so the group reluctantly continues on. While running away, everyone sees that Jiang is indeed a reckless person, but also very decisive. He has grasped the situation very well when he realized that as long as he doesn't kill anyone, no one can do anything to him. And he also grasped that some people already didn't like Romeo, so he decisively acted without waiting for anyone's opinion. They then saw the exit and actually got outside, but looking around, they don't see any herbs. The poison the natives use might be snake venom, so they need to see if there are any snake caves around here. Sujin will leave Ning Yuan here for a while Jiang has asked Andre to help him carry some rocks in to replace that sissy guy. Mr. Shigaki then divides tasks for everyone, and he notices when Tracy and Andre pass each other. They both glare at each other somewhat. Meanwhile, the sissy guy has just woken up and left the stone table, causing the door to close again. He begs for help in vain, and then is approached by some kind of giant creature. Ning Yuan has now regained consciousness, while the other two are carrying rocks in when they hear the sissy guys scream and realize something has happened, so they stop. It's too late to save him. Just then, the comedian returns being chased by a snake. The basketball player has been driven off a cliff by the snake. The comedian suddenly trips, forcing Tracy to rush out and shoot the snake a few times. Jiang also comes to stab it, causing it pain and making it throw him into a waterfall. The snake then leaves and the whole group decides to go find the basketball player and Jiang. Jiang has now pulled the basketball player out of the water. Both are covered in leeches, so Jiang uses a lighter to make them let go. They then go to find the others and see a gas balloon, so they puncture it to see and laugh before passing out. The two are then found by the other group. When reunited, the comedian sees blood on the back of the basketball player. But Sujin says it's just leech bites, so wait a while and he'll recover. A while later, both have regained consciousness. Jiang is surprised to see Ning Yuan has recovered. Just as they're about to go investigate something, they're suddenly surrounded by natives. But the chief tells the soldiers not to act rashly. The professor understands his intention, so he approaches and asks how he knows their language. This language is only understood by the one-eyed old man. The professor knows a one-eyed professor who taught him this language, and wonders if that's the old man the chief mentioned. However, that professor died 10 years ago. They are then escorted to the native village. On the way, Jiang quietly reminds Ning Yuan that the road they're on is on the route in the map, so if they find an opportunity, they must escape immediately. They are then brought to the native village, and we learn that the reason the chief brought them here is for medical treatment. The professor reluctantly brings Sujin along, but after a while, the chief doesn't accept a woman examining the patient. The professor remembers that this tribe greatly respects men and looks down on women. He tries to plead, but the chief adamantly refuses. But a one-armed old man comes out and tells him to give them a chance, because if they can't cure him, they'll lose their lives. Sujin is brought inside and meets the real chief, while the person they went with was just a temporary chief. After examining him, Sujin knows he only has some basic illnesses, but needs a type of medicine to cure him. They don't have the medicine with them, but Sujin knows the plant used to make the medicine is on this island. They are only allowed 3 people to go pick it, while the others will be hostages. If they don't bring back the medicine, everyone will die. Sujin will definitely go, and to protect her, Tracy is also allowed to go. The remaining person is Andre, who volunteered because he's familiar with jungle environments and can easily find his way. Andre asked to borrow Zhong's knife, and he reluctantly lent it, since staying in the village doesn't require a knife much. While everyone is detained, the professor learns about the history of this place. In the past, the village had an epidemic, and those who couldn't be saved were offered to the giant snake that ruled this place. Until one day, white people came and destroyed their way of life. But the one-eyed old man was different. He cured their diseases and greatly improved their lives. They also learned some of the one-eyed old man's language. However, one day he disappeared after going into the volcano. At this point, the professor seems to realize a truth. As for Sujin's side, all 3 are still looking for the medicinal plant. Andre seems to have some grudge against Tracy. so the reason he volunteered to go this time was to have a chance to act against her. Soo-jin has found the medicinal plant and tells them to come over to pick it. The professor now suspects that his teacher, the professor, might still be alive. In the past, the professor had mentioned that he would continue his project on ancient tribes, although he had previously stopped due to lack of funding. He said that a private organization had invested in this project for him, and he wasn't allowed to disclose the name and would have to donate his body if he passed away. Presumably, on the day of the funeral, people from that organization came to take his body away. Moreover, 2 years before the professor died, he had surprised the PhD student by not caring about the death of his beloved dog, because he later injected the dog with a drug that brought it back to life. He said it was a drug that caused clinical death in organisms, so it's possible that the professor injected himself to cause clinical death, and then quietly continued his research project on longevity. The knowledge about longevity was found on this island, and it seems he is now actively researching to complete that project. Ning Yuan wants them to worry less, because now their goal is to survive and leave this place. Meanwhile, Soo-jin's group has finished picking, and suddenly Tracy points her gun at Andre. He thinks he's been exposed, but she's aiming at the monkey behind him. They encounter many red-eyed monkeys surrounding them. Dawn is approaching, and the natives have come to take them out for execution. Everyone is dragged out even though it's not fully light yet. The artist is so scared that he's taken first, because this tribe hates cowards. Just as the sun is rising, he's about to be put on a stake, but luckily the other 3 have returned in time. The artist then wakes up and feels lucky to still be alive. Soo-jin has made medicine to treat those who are sick, and they thank her. She is then taken outside by the one-armed old man. She asked him about the way to leave here, and he points her towards the volcano. As for the monkeys, Soo-jin reveals that they are all like walking corpses, released by the white people before. The volcano previously held a demonic object and was considered forbidden ground, but the white people came and broke it, causing those zombie-like monkeys to escape. The old man lost his hand because of them. She then returns to tell everyone. The professor doesn't believe that those monkeys are zombies because it's too unscientific. But Ning Yuan suspects that the professor's teacher might have come here to research that longevity method, and perhaps those monkeys are his experimental subjects. Everyone wants to find out the truth, so they will all head towards the volcano. Meanwhile, a red-haired young man has come to find a person named Mr. Lap. This person is the one who brought everyone to this island. This young man is very confident in betting that the whole group will reach the volcano without anyone dying because Ning Yuan is in that group. This person knows Ning Yuan's abilities well, so he's very confident. After placing the bet, the red-haired young man also meets that professor. He really isn't dead yet and also wants to place a bet. He then informs Mr. La about Ning Yuan's memory trauma, causing this young man to worry a bit about Ning Yuan. Meanwhile, the whole group is sitting fishing with the natives. Zhang sees the one-armed old man's cigarette and asks for a puff. The old man warns that the tobacco is very strong, but he's still self-satisfied, so he takes a drag and Zhang is completely high. The boys all blush seeing Tracy bathe, but the chief still thinks that these modern girls aren't as beautiful as the girls in his village. If Ning Yuan needs, he'll introduce him to a few girls. They then return to feast with the villagers. Everyone drinks a bowl of wine as a courtesy, and they plan to set out tomorrow, so they need someone to guide them. The one-armed man will personally guide them, so they can relax today. Andre sees the natives having an archery competition, but the chief brings out a high-quality crossbow left behind by the one-eyed old man years ago. He and Andre decide to make a bet. If Andre wins, the chief will give him the crossbow. If he loses, the chief points to his head. Thinking he's asking for Andre's head, the one-armed man has to translate that the chief only wants Andre's hat. They then go outside. The chief shoots first and hits a distant target. Andre has given him the hat whether he wins or loses. He then aims and shoots, splitting the chief's arrow in half. He has won and both get what they want. As for Andre's long hair, he still has another hat to wear. In the evening, Zhang finally sobers up from his high and goes outside to see two monkeys attacking a native, so he shouts. Ning Yuan has run over and the two monkeys are immediately shot down by two arrows. Unfortunately, the injured person is the village's elite warrior. The one-armed man wants to cremate him before he becomes a zombie, but the chief refuses because village custom dictates that only burial allows the dead to rest in peace. After arguing for a while, the chief makes a suitable decision. According to the professor, the chief plans to divide this person's body into small parts and bury them so he can't go crazy. Just as the chief is about to perform his dirty work, this person has gone mad and bites the chief's hand. He knows he's about to die too, but when others come running, he claims he fell on sharp rocks. The whole village then goes searching, while the chief is taken back to be bandaged. Su Jin sees that this wound seems to be from a knife cut, not sharp rocks. The chief tries to avoid the topic while the one-armed man is suspicious. The others have prepared their things to set out early tomorrow morning. Ning Yuan has asked the one-armed man about when he was attacked by the monkeys years ago. At that time, the professor returned from the volcano, and the monkeys also came from there. Some people who were scratched gradually lost their minds, and their bodies slowly rotted, some faster than others. And in the end, everyone became like zombies. He still regrets not being able to save his son back then. His son could have become the chief, but because he was infected, he had to be eliminated. He also lost an arm from that. When everyone has gone to sleep, Jiang sits thinking. He has asked Ning Yuan if he happens to get infected later, would he be ready to take action against him? But he doesn't want anyone to die. They both then go to sleep, and the next morning the whole group sets out. The one-armed man apologizes for not being able to guide them to the volcano, but he has a favor to ask. Today he will organize the official chief inauguration ceremony. He wants them to spend some time staying to attend. They are all hesitant, so he suggests that if they don't stay, it shows they're being disrespectful. They reluctantly stay to watch. The former chief has cut out a bowl of blood for this temporary chief to drink. The one-armed man now reveals that he has discovered something. If an infected person eats the internal organs of someone who is transformed, the infection process will be accelerated. He now shouts that the chief down there is the person who poisoned his son into a zombie years ago, so now he will take revenge. He has smeared the organs of the person bitten by monkeys last night into that bowl, causing the chief to now truly transform into a zombie. He orders to execute everyone on the mountain, causing everyone to run away in fear. The main characters also have no time to hesitate, so they run away quickly. The chief who has now transformed turns to eat the former chief. That day, the group was so focused on running that they all got separated. The professor thinks they should go towards the volcano in hopes of reuniting. Suddenly, there's a noise behind, and luckily it's Ning Yuan. Then suddenly all three of them see Su Jin being chased by someone. All three hide temporarily in a corner and see two natives who, although chasing Su Jin, do not harm her because she is their benefactor, so they only show her the direction of the volcano for her to run towards. They no longer dare to trust that monster as their chief. Although Su Jin is spared, the professor still doesn't want to come out yet because the other two might only spare the benefactor Su Jin, not them. That night, they rest near the beach as it's quite safe. Ning Yuan listens to the artist recite some poetry and falls asleep, dreaming of someone calling for his help. Both he and that person are thrown into the sea and attacked by sharks, but he luckily escapes while the other doesn't. He wakes up and calls out the name Ning Bang, confusing the other two who don't know who he's talking about. Suddenly, they realize the tide is rising and there are alligators nearby, but the alligators haven't noticed them yet. So they reduce noise and wait for the tide to recede before running. But waiting until morning increases the chances of the alligators discovering them. So the artist, valuing his life and fearing death, boldly runs away. The alligators are alerted and chase him, but he dives into the water and successfully escapes. He keeps running into the forest, but remembering the kindness from before, decides to find a rope to go back and save the others. He successfully finds one and meets Jiang. Jiang knows where the two younger ones are and plans to rescue Ning Yuan first, but monkeys appear, so he chooses to stay behind while the artist goes to save Ning Yuan. The artist returns to find the other two climbing trees to hide. Ning Yuan tells him to tie one end of the rope to a rock and throw it over, tying the other end to a tree on the other side. He throws the rope across and Ning Yuan quickly catches it, letting the professor cross first. But after one crossing, the rope has stretched, making it dangerous for Ning Yuan to cross as alligators could jump up and bite him. So he decides to walk on the rope like a circus performer and makes it across. But just as he's about to reach the end, Jiang arrives to fight off the alligators for him. He confesses that he's been scratched by monkeys. The professor, wanting safety, asks Jiang to separate from the group. But Ning Yuan argues that the old man said those scratched usually have an incubation period of several months, so if they hurry, they might find an antidote to save Jiang. As a precaution, Jiang should walk behind the group. Meanwhile, Andre and Tracy have reunited. Seeing Tracy hungry, he gives her food. Su Jin has seen the volcano and is attacked by someone. Hearing her scream, everyone runs to her. It turns out to be the basketball youth and Mr. Shigaki who are hungry and startled her. Knowing Andre has food, the group plans to go back there, but monkeys find them. Ning Yuan's group is wandering around, lost due to trees blocking their path. They find a clearing to determine their direction by the sun, but unfortunately, it's a swamp. The professor instructs them to lie down and swim across. Midway, the artist sees spiders and panics, thrashing about and sinking. He grabs Ning Yuan's leg. Ning Yuan considers stepping on him to leave him behind, but remembers his dream and breaks off a nearby hollow stem for the artist to breathe through, planning to find a way later. The professor reaches the shore first, and Ning Yuan asks him to find vines to throw down. He then sees Jiang stuck in the mud and tells him to stay still. He swims to shore and, with the professor, throws a vine to Jiang and pulls him across, also managing to pull up the artist along the way. Su Jin's group escapes the monkeys, but the way back to the food is blocked by monkeys. Now going to the volcano would leave them very hungry, so they split up to find food around here. Meanwhile, Ning Yuan's group has to rest for a while before continuing. The professor sees Jiang's eyes are redder and wants him to go alone, but Ning Yuan decides to keep Jiang with them, or else he'll separate with Jiang. They've sworn brotherhood to live and die together. Jiang once asked Ning Yuan if he's ready to kill him if necessary, as he's not afraid of death since entering the Jianghu world. So Ning Yuan will help him find an antidote, or he'll personally kill Jiang when he's about to turn into a zombie. Seeing they've settled this, the professor apologizes for being overly pessimistic. At this time, the group with Su Jin wondered how each person had crossed the swamp. Su Jin was warned by two natives before entering the swamp. Andre and Tracy had both been trained in how to deal with swamps. Mr. Shigaki and the basketball youth used trees to weave into planks beforehand. The basketball youth noticed that Andre seemed to care about Tracy because from the moment they separated, they always saw Andre following her. She had recounted how she had previously apprehended a group of sex traffickers, and as they were fleeing, she had shot one person. When the body was retrieved, the shot person was confirmed to be a Russian mercenary with the same surname as Andre. But Andre's family had 4 siblings, so she wasn't sure if Andre was the one who had escaped or not. Mr. Shigaki wasn't sure if Andre would target her or not, so he warned her to limit going alone with Andre. Meanwhile, Ning Yuan's group had found the abandoned food bag and knew the others had gone ahead, so they would try to reach the volcano to regroup. The group ahead was now melting with sweat because the closer they got to the volcano, the hotter it became. Suddenly, the whole group discovered that Mr. Shigaki had disappeared, so they split up to search. The basketball youth was walking close to Andre when he suddenly cried for help and disappeared, causing Tracy to suspect Andre had done something. But immediately after, Su Jin also cried for help, Both of them ran over to find that she had fallen into quicksand, so they tried to pull her out but ended up falling in as well. The whole group reunited in an underground cave and found both the basketball youth and Mr. Shigaki there. Ning Yuan's group was fortunate to find a hot spring to relieve their fatigue after a day of walking. Suddenly, the doctor said he was cold and got out. After a while, he became hot abruptly, so they knew he had malaria. Mr. Shigaki's shirt floated here, so they knew the others were still safe ahead and tried to find Sujin to treat the doctor. The group then found a cave, and the doctor couldn't walk anymore, so Jiang said he would stay outside with him, as Jiang's eyes were also getting blurry. Going inside would only slow Ning Yuan down, so he and the artist left some food and went inside. Inside, everyone was hungry, so Andre wanted to go find something and asked Tracy to come along. But the basketball youth was worried about Mr. Shigaki's previous warning, so he wanted to switch places with Andre and stay here. However, Tracy was confident she could handle herself and left the basketball youth with Sujin. As they were searching, they accidentally discovered a man-made tunnel. When they went inside to explore, they split up, and Tracy found an electrical switch, which she flipped on. Coincidentally, the artist and Ning Yuan had entered here and saw the lights turn on. Tracy went deeper and discovered that this place had a basement and many transport equipment down here. She went down to check, when suddenly emergency mode was activated and the door closed. Someone had dropped a container on her head, and the others had followed the sound and ran over. Tracy escaped and didn't know the position of the person targeting her, so she took off her outer shirt and threw it to lure the enemy to shoot first. As soon as she got the position, she skillfully followed without giving the person a chance to shoot back. That person ran towards the door, just as Andre and Ning Yuan's group arrived. Tracy shot at the fleeing person just as Andre stood in front of the door. He thought Tracy had determined to take his life, so he also raised his crossbow, intending to fight to the death. Ning Yuan knew he had to stop both of them, but the artist reminded him that those two were professionals and had weapons. Both had determined each other's positions and were about to kill each other when Ning Yuan stepped in to stop them. Andre claimed that he was the real police officer and Tracy was a nationally wanted criminal, but Tracy believed Andre was waiting for a chance to take revenge on her. Neither believed the other, so Ning Yuan tried to argue that this was a misunderstanding because while she was fighting with the person inside, he and the artist were still following Andre. But she didn't believe she had mistaken because the person she fought was holding a crossbow and was exactly Andre's height. Ning Yuan ignored both of their misunderstandings and took out the food bag as a threat. If they didn't stop, he would throw away this food. Now that they were near the volcano with no more food, if he threw this away, even if they resolved their grudges, they would still die of hunger. The young basketball player staying with Sujin started experiencing low blood pressure, so Sujin gave him the apple that was meant for Mr. Shigaki. He only ate half of it because he still wanted to save some for Mr. Shigaki. Suddenly, Ning Yuan's group returned with food. When things settled down, he asked Sujin to help him rescue the two people outside. Although Sujin heard that Jiang had been scratched by monkeys, she still wanted to save the brother who, despite his bad temper, had protected them earlier. Andre decided to go with both of them. When they reached the cave entrance, all three were shocked to find that the two sick people were nowhere to be seen, although their jackets and food were still there. After searching around and finding nothing, Ning Yuan discovered Jiang's knife stuck in a place. Andre, who is quite tall, would have had to jump to pull it out, so it certainly wasn't placed there by the sick Jiang. He decided to return with both of them to regroup, thinking that Jiang and the doctor might have been taken into the research area inside. At this point, Tracy suspected that her gun might have been tampered with, as she had been shooting off target lately. Ning Yuan's group returned and informed them of what had happened. Mr. Shigaki had also regained consciousness, and they decided to venture deeper inside. While examining the large underground chamber, Mr. Shigaki realized that this setup could only be the work of the government, not private individuals. The vehicles there could be used by any military branch, so this could be a naval facility, which meant there should be a dock. The chances of finding communication equipment and a means to escape the island at the dock were high, so now they had a goal. They would find the 2 missing people, get the cure, and head to the dock to leave the island. They later discovered a dried corpse of a research staff member near a door that required a card to pass through. Luckily, the corpse had a card that helped them get through. Inside was research equipment, and they thought they might find the cure there. Even for a tech genius like Mr. Shigaki, it was impossible to hack. He found something that looked like a server, but even though they could access it, they didn't have the password. Although he could write a decryption tool, the password was too long, so it would take at least a week to crack. But Ning Yuan reminded him of the supercomputer nearby, so Mr. Shigaki said that thanks to Ning Yuan's idea, it wouldn't take a week. While waiting for him, the group went exploring again. They split into 2 teams, one led by Sujin and one by Ning Yuan. Mr. Shigaki would monitor them through cameras and guide them. Sujin's group entered a secure room and, when they turned on the lights, realized that the monkeys were actually created there. Sujin found a medicine cabinet, so they might be able to find a cure for Jiang. Ning Yuan's group entered a decontamination area with a changing room. This place had protective gear and even name tags of American soldiers, proving that this research facility was indeed not simple. The basketball player thought they should help the natives escape too, but they could barely take care of themselves, let alone bring others along, as it would only slow them down. Hearing these words, he suddenly became tense. When he regained his composure, he told the 2 about a crucial game he once had where a lot was expected of him. But at the last moment, he became too nervous and messed up. The criticism that followed caused him serious psychological issues, making his body freeze up every time he's in an important situation. Mr. Shigaki then told them to continue because there was a cafeteria nearby. When they went in to check, there were more dried corpses there. It seemed they all died suddenly while eating. There was a room nearby, so they went to check it out, and it appeared to be a VIP room. They then noticed someone sitting nearby, so Andre went to check and discovered a person with an incredibly ugly face. Meanwhile, Sujin's group noticed that most of the medicine had been taken and what remained was smashed, but they were still determined to search elsewhere. Ning Yuan's group found that the incredibly ugly person was actually a corpse, but Andre thought it strange because this corpse didn't look like a normal one. This corpse had a high-level identification card and a notebook that had been torn up, with most pages missing. Suddenly Andre saw someone dash by, so he ran after them, but Ning Yuan asked him to leave the notebook behind. Meanwhile, Sujin's group was walking and talking when a grenade flew towards them. Tracy managed to save both of them and still suspected Andre was behind it. All 3 took shelter under a staircase, and the fat guy decided to run out and open the door for the other 2 to escape. He dashed out, but an arrow grazed his ear. However, the attacker's position was revealed, and Tracy fired at them. Sujin ran and made it through the door. The attacker threw another bomb, and Tracy quickly jumped through the door, calling for the fat guy to come through. But before he could make it, he realized his wound had been poisoned, rendering him immobile. Thus, the fat guy lost his life, having done something glorious in the end. The 2 girls ran and encountered a locked door. They tried to find any open door as the attacker was closing in. They hid in a room that looked like a bathroom, but the person outside activated a mechanism to release anesthetic gas into the room. They tried to push the door open, but it wouldn't budge, and they eventually lost consciousness inside. Ning Yuan and the basketball player couldn't find Andre, so they went back to Mr. Shigaki, knowing Sujin's group must have run into trouble. Mr. Shigaki believed Andre had thrown the bomb that killed the artist and captured both girls. The Andre he mentioned seemed to know all the camera positions, making it impossible for him to track. However, regarding the password, Ning Yuan found the only remaining page from the corpse's notebook. The message left matched the number of characters in the password, so they successfully unlocked it. but another problem arose as they needed the fingerprint of the authority figure to activate it. In other words, they needed that corpse. Moreover, they only had 10 minutes to bring the corpse back before the place self-destructed. The basketball player was the only one who could do it. Ning Yuan wanted him to cut off the corpse's hand and bring it back, as he was the fastest runner. But he was too kind-hearted and feared doing it. They had to convince him to run. When he reached the dining room and took out the knife, the corpse was positioned to look straight at him with a smile, making him unable to cut off the hand. He sat there for over a minute, forcing Ning Yuan to encourage him over the loudspeaker. After a while, he decided to carry the entire corpse back, realizing that everyone in the group was good at something, and he couldn't keep being useless. This was his moment to prove himself. On the way, he accidentally ran into Andre, but Andre didn't do anything as he didn't understand what the basketball player was doing. He arrived at the control room just in time with only 20 seconds left, but he tripped, forcing Ning Yuan to run towards him. However, he got up, took the corpse's hand, and jumped to place it on the control panel. The final moment was also when the film ended. The narrator then adds, "Don't ask me about part 2 because I don't know either. If there's anything I want to say, it's just one thing. Damn the author. Damn the studio making the film. If you're going to make it, finish it completely. Goodbye."